My name's Matthew Miller. This is my first 10 articles video. Um, so I'm just going to start with my research question, then I'll go into my 12 articles. Alright, so my research question is what factors are causing obesity to become a more prevalent occurrence at a global scale as years go by? Alright, and my inclusion slash exclusion criteria is that the articles must provide statistics explaining what main factors are causing obesity to be more and more prevalent, not so much looking for articles that are explaining how to reduce obesity rates. I'm looking for articles that have similar factors that are causing the increased rate of obesity at a global scale. So for my first source, I'm going to be going over the article called Why has obesity prevalence well, why has the prevalence of obesity doubled, which is a review of the economics of the household by I think the authors Baum CL and Chu S. Alright. One sec. Um so in the abstract it says that we estimate the effects of multiple social, economic, environmental factors on obesity using NLSY data. And then I highlighted socio environmental factor. And then it says many socio environmental factors significantly affect weight, but not are able to explain a large portion of obesity increase. Um, and the keywords in this article are obesity, overweight, and BMI. So, I mean, just from looking at the first couple paragraphs and then reading through the entire article, I felt like this article would be able to um, help me with making my research paper later on. Alright, then I'm going to go to the second article called, one sec, Prevalence of Obesity Among Adults from Rural and Urban Areas of the United States, 2005 to 2008. Alright, so the keywords within this article are similar to all the other ones that will be in the other articles. In this one, it's epidemiology, health disparities, obesity, rural, social determinants of health. Alright, so I'm going to scroll down to some of the paragraphs in the discussion. So this paragraph says, the major finding in the study is the significantly higher prevalence of obesity in rural compared to urban adults in the United States. So this article is basically comparing the obesity rates from the rural and urban parts of the U.S. and this is a major factor in obesity. So I think I would be able to put that into my research paper later on, with that being a pretty good major factor. Alright, then moving on to my third article from Elisa Birch. The title being The Role of Socio-Economic and Demographic and Behavioral Factors in Explaining the High Rates of Obesity Among indigenous Australians. So for my research question, I didn't want to just focus on the US. I just wanted to go more of like a global scale, so I was able to find more articles, and this one being based based on indigenous Australians. So um, so within the first paragraph, I was able to pinpoint this one sentence that I thought was pretty good. It says, this study finds that the key factors that impact on the probability of being obese relate to Indigenous Australians' wealth, engagement in physical activity, and diet. So this article is focusing on those three main factors, and after reading through the rest of the article, I was able to figure out that this article would be able to allow me to add more into my research paper. Um, so again, going back to my research question, what factors are causing obesity to become more and more prevalent occurrence at a global scale as years go by? So I mean, this article is more of a global scale thing, not just the US, and it's able to, yeah, just help me add to my research paper later on. Alright, then moving on to, what is this? 1, 2, 3. My fourth article by Deborah A. Cohan, Brian K. Finch, and Amy Bauer, and Narayan Sastry, with the article being titled Collective Efficacy, and Obesity, the Potential Influence of Social Factors on Health. So this article is going to focus on the social factors, which I think is pretty interesting, and the keywords being collective efficacy, neighborhood effects, adolescence, social influences, and it's being focused in the USA. So, again, going back to my research question, obesity being more prevalent on a global scale, and this is pointing out what 2 or 3 major factors just in the keywords. So I read along and then I came to this paragraph and pointed out these 2 sentences saying, however, while obesity is found in all income and ethnic groups, low income groups, and ethnic and racial minorities are disproportionately affected. And it goes on to say, this health disparity points to social factors as likely contributors to the obesity epidemic. So yeah, I thought those 2 sentences were able to point out how I would be able to use this article in my research paper. And moving on to my 5th article by Voss B. and Sindre M. Dierstad, with the title being Stress and Obesity, Cause or Consequence. So I thought this article was a little more interesting in that they're trying to figure out if stress was causing obesity or obesity was causing the stress. So within the abstract paragraph, I was able to point out a few key things pointed out or highlighted in blue. So I'll just read those through. The first one being including the body's stress system and cortisol release. So that would be a factor. And then the second one being whether stress is also a consequence of obesity has up now only briefly been discussed. elucidate how stress and obesity might be linked, and discuss the cause and consequence relationship between the stress response and obesity. So after reading through this article a little bit, I thought this would be able to um, give a little bit more detail on stress and obesity that I could put into my research paper. Um, I'll move on to the next article by what's her name? Guinea Garcia, Tankam S. Sunil, and Pedro Hinojosa. So within the abstract, I pointed out this couple sentences. It says, the aim of present study was to examine selected behavioral factors associated with severity of obesity among preoperative bariatric surgery patients in the San Antonio area, focusing specifically on the effects of fast food consumption. So this article is going to focus on fast food consumption, and with the keywords in this article being severe extreme obesity, bariatric surgery, and fast food consumption. So I read through this article and found a few paragraphs where I thought that I would be able to include it into my research paper. In each paragraph, I felt like there was pretty good statistics and information that were unique from the other ones, with this one focusing on bariatric surgery and fast food consumption. And again, those being major factors, which is what I try to highlight within my research question. So my next article, the title being Obesity Emergence in the Pacific Islands, why understanding colonial history and social change is important. So this article is going to focus on obesity in the Pacific Islands, which I'm able to use because I focused my research question at a global scale. So within the abstract, I was able to find this sentence, which I highlighted. The aim of the present paper is to examine why these populations have been so prone to obesity increases in recent times. So just with that one sentence, I was able to figure out that this article would go directly with my research question, and that it's basically worded the same way. And with the keywords in this article being obesity, Pacific Islands, colonial history, social change, dietary change, and interdependence. So again, after reading through this article and pointing out a few things that I thought would be able to help out my paper, I thought I would be able to put it into my usable sources. And then I'm going to move on to the next article, being, I have to scroll up to find the title. Global, regional, and national prevalence of overweight and obesity in children and adults during 1980 through 2013, a systematic analysis for the Global Burden of Disease Study 2013. So with this article, I had to scroll through a little bit further to find a few highlightable paragraphs that I could point out for this video. One sec. Alright, so I go down to the discussion portion, and I was able to point out a few sentences highlighted in blue, also in yellow. Highlighted in blue with marked variations across the countries in levels and trends in overweight and obesity with distinct regional patterns. So this article had focused on like the regional patterns of obesity, which is a common trend in some of the other articles as well, and it includes increases in the developing world, so it's at a global scale. Um, and it also points out that Pacific and Caribbean and countries in the Middle East and Central America already have reached especially high rates of overweight and obesity, which is what I focused my research question on. It also states that no countries have had significant decreases in obesity in the past 33 years. So I thought that was a pretty good statistic that I could implement into my paper. Alright, on to the next article, um, named Obesity and Economic Environments. So just based off the title, I was able to figure out that this paper was going to be how economic environments affect obesity rates. So highlighted in blue within the first paragraph, I highlighted increases in leisure time, increased fruit and vegetable availability across socio demographic groups or geographic areas, which is a common trend once again, the areas that you live in, and the role of the environment in the obesity epidemic. So, and the keywords being economic environment, food, diet, physical activity, obesity, body weight, price, and policy. So, just within this first paragraph and the keywords, I was able to figure out that this article would be able to help me within making my research paper later on. So I threw it into my usable sources. I think I only have one more source for that meet my inclusion criteria, so I'll go over that one real quick. So this one's titled Causes of Obesity. The keywords being obesity, etiology, weight management, causes of obesity, and bariatric surgery, which is something that has come up in previous articles as well. So after reading the second or third paragraph, I was able to highlight the easy the etiology of obesity is highly complex and includes genetic, physiologic, environmental, psychological, social, economic, and even political factors that interact in varying degrees to promote the development of obesity. It also says fat-laden foods are not only affordable but easy accessible. So this article is focusing more on how the outside factors affect obesity, which I would, which I think would be able to be main factors, which I will talk about in my research paper later on. And then we're gonna move into my articles that I found that I could not include based off of my inclusion criteria. And I'll go back and read that again. So my inclusion-exclusion criteria being articles must provide statistics explaining what main factors are causing obesity to be more and more prevalent, not looking for articles that are explaining how to reduce obesity rates. So with these two articles, I found a few keywords that were did not meet my inclusion criteria, and I'll just read a little bit of this paragraph from my first article. In fact, nearly 2/3 of all states currently tax soft drinks using excise taxes, sales taxes, or special exceptions to food exemptions from sales taxes. Additionally, in recent years, many states and localities have proposed excise taxes in soft drinks in an effort to curb the rise in obesity. So I highlighted in blue effort to curb the rise in obesity because that is like a highlighting the fact that this article is going to be explaining how to slow down the rise in obesity, not really explaining what the main factors are. So I'll go on to my last article, which is also my second article that does not reach my inclusion criteria. This article is titled, one second, Child and Adolescent Obesity, Part of a Bigger Picture. So on first glance, I felt like this article would be able to help me and would reach my inclusion criteria, but after reading through just the third paragraph, I was able to figure out that this was more of a prevention article, not so much a what's it called? Not explaining the factors that cause obesity. So within this article, or this paragraph, with the header being child obesity prevention, that was already a red flag for me. And as I read through this paragraph, I found that prevention was used 3 separate times, which gave me the clue that this article was not what I was looking for. And so I felt like I would not be able to use this article based on my inclusion criteria. Alright, so I went through all 12 of my articles, and hopefully I was able to explain which articles were able to be used and which ones weren't. And yep, thank you.